Good evening, everyone. It's now 6:05, and I am calling to order the Lawrence Alliance for Education meeting for May 12th, 2021. I almost said March. Before we jump in, can you please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all very much. Would just like to state, as we are required to at the beginning of meetings held in this way, that we're following guidance, issued by the governor in March of 2020 in response to the COVID emergency, where all board members, staff, and guests participating are doing so remotely via Zoom technology. We are streaming this live as well for members of the public to be able to access. As a reminder as well, public comment is submitted through the info@lawrenceallianceforeducation.org website. We do receive those emails. I can confirm that every single email sent to that account by noon today has been forwarded to board members in advance of the meeting. And so, again, we really appreciate the emails that have been sent. And I know I've read them all, in advance of this meeting. So we thank you for that. Just would like to state, as noted in the agenda, we did have an executive session prior to this meeting, and for one of the sort of legally allowed reasons for executive session, which is to discuss overall strategy as it relates to a particular discussion of a contract or MOU, and in this case, about the LTU. The district is in consultation right now to try to develop an MOU, related to the work here, returning to in-person. So just want folks, again, for the public record, to state that that conversation happened in executive session. So we have a packed agenda today, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Superintendent, in a second. I would like to just say briefly, just again, my deep appreciation to the teachers, all of the staff in Lawrence for the work that you all have been doing throughout the year, but especially, again, these recent phases of getting students back in person. I had a chance to visit a few schools this week with the superintendent. I hope to be able to do that, Superintendent, maybe weekly. I don't know. I'll reach out to you. If I could tag along. But just want to, and it was only 3 schools, and I hope to get to, ideally, if I can, all of them by the end of the year. But just want to reiterate, the buzz in the buildings with the students back, and the teachers that I saw just really engaging with students, both, in the classroom physically, and students as well that are learning virtually, in all of the classrooms, but one I saw as well. I know there were additional ways to support students with either 2 teachers or one online and one in the room. And I know teachers have just been incredibly just creative about how to reach students, and the level of engagement that I saw from the kids was incredibly high. And we had a chance, through the superintendent, to talk to a couple of parents and students, and they'll tell you, even the high school students saying, what, I'm getting a little more help here, which is why I'm here in person right now. And seeing seniors who are like a week and change away, from finishing their senior year, but coming back in person, connecting with their peers, with teachers, administrators, was just really great to see. So just thank you again for the work. This is a year that has been unlike any other year, at least as in my time in education. So just want to really reiterate and thank the entire staff, again, teachers, parents, for your flexibility and your work in supporting our students. So with that, Superintendent, I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thank you. I have a brief update in terms of how many students are back with us in person. So in a moment, I'm going to share my screen and show you those numbers. Okay. Hope this is something. Okay. So what you see here is total enrollment students that we have in person, and then that is translated in percentages. And you see that this is quite consistent with what our survey indicated earlier in the spring. No surprise here, we have a lot more students in person in the lower grades, and then smaller student amounts in the upper grades in our high school numbers. This translates to about, for example, we will see up to 12 students in our younger grades. The largest classrooms that we have seen so far in terms of, when you see kids physically is our middle schools. And then you'll see here in this graph that we have quite a bit of fourth graders in person, as well as those younger first graders. Less students of our seniors, and as Ventura has indicated, our seniors, when we were speaking with them earlier this week, are in that place where they wanted to. I spoke to several students. A lot of them shared, I asked them the question, are you here? Tell me why you're here and what that's like. A lot of them said, I wanted to connect with my teacher who has been exceptional throughout my virtual experience. And then many of them also said, I wanted to see my friends in person. So that is a pattern consistent with our high schoolers. When I've spoken to the middle schoolers, the same question is, tell me what it's like to be back. And some of them are like, it's okay. And then I asked them, was this your idea to return, or was this your parents' idea? For the middle schoolers, lots of them replied, this was my parents' idea. I said, yes, that's what we do as parents. We make good decisions for our students. And then when we asked the younger students, they're just happy to be back with friends. And I had shared with you a few weeks ago that they're free to share that with hugs and high fives and bouncing and skipping. So overall, students are having a good experience. When I've spoken to families, I've asked them things like, tell me what your comfort level has been and what are you experiencing now that your student is back. Consistently, the pattern with families is that they're also grateful that their student is back in person because they needed that structure. They needed to see their teacher in person, and they needed to be with their peers. A lot of our families also said that because English is not their first language, it was incredibly important to have their student back in school so that they can get that in-person additional support that they so much needed and their family members was unable to provide them. So as I said, this is a brief update. I'm happy to take any questions about that.
Great. I'll go ahead and just go through board members if they have questions at this time. And maybe Superintendent, can you preview for us, is there anything else on reopening, or is this?
No, I just wanted to share the additional
perfect.
numbers. Everything else has stayed consistent since our last update.
Yep, great, thanks. Okay, Jess?
Just a quick logistical question. If somebody changes their mind at this point about like coming in person, can they be accommodated? Can they make that change? I know that we had wanted everyone to make the decision earlier, but are we being flexible about that at all?
We haven't had many requests to switch back either way, and we continue to remain flexible because things can happen very quickly, particularly if a family member has the virus, and so that means they have to revert back. So those are the instances where, of course, we have to be flexible because that means, family members are now quarantined, and the student also needs to be back home.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks. Noemi?
I don't have any questions at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Yes, just one quick question. Superintendent, do you have a number of how many incidences we've had, COVID incidences in schools?
I don't have it at the top of my head, but the average is pretty steady since March. It's about 10 cases, and that includes adults and students.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now,
Dan?
is that 10 cases in total, right?
Yes, in total.
Thank you.
Sorry, before we get to Dan, just on this topic, Superintendent, can you remind us, because the district reports data correct to the state, can you just remind us about that reporting requirement and where people can find that?
Yep, absolutely. So the district reports on a weekly basis those numbers, and they are sent to DESE, and that's a link that is on the DESE website.
Great, and we can talk about if we need to share that link or make it more visible for people to be able to access as well. So Dan?
I'm all set, no questions.
Great, and I'm all set at this time as well, so Superintendent, feel free to carry on.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to shift here. Our next agenda item is Portrait of the Graduate. As a reminder, this is one of the priorities that we have indicated in our turnaround plan. It is part of our goals, is our continued commitment to ensure that our high school families, students, and staff have an excellent experience. And we've engaged with a grant, Portrait of the Graduate. I'm going to turn this over to my colleague Maricel and Simone, who are going to share the presentation.
Good evening, members of the LAE Board. Simone Wright is going to be sharing a video to preface our PowerPoint presentation.
Portrait of a Graduate is the representation of the attributes, skills, and competencies we want every Lawrence graduate to possess as they enter the world beyond high school.
It is a collaborative process between the school district and the community at large. Our goal is to create a broad and inclusive community-driven process that will inform our students' major learnings and experience as graduates of Lawrence Public Schools.
This process is centered around our scholars' desires, life goals, and the core competencies needed for their own success.
The skills acquired in their educational journey will serve as the foundation to prepare all students to reach their desired outcomes.
The portrait is not about a singular path, but of multiple paths to success.
I want to be a doctor. I would like to be a teacher.
I want to be an electrician.
I want to be an artist.
To be an immigration lawyer, and at Lawrence High will be able to do it.
Lawrence High School will help me perfect my English skills. It will help me with the next level of my education, which will bring me closer to achieve my goal of becoming a pharmacist.
Teachers, students, families, community members, city and district advocates will build this portrait together through feedback captured in surveys, small group meetings, and one-on-one sessions.
The final product will be a list of skills, competencies, and pathways that will support our students' success beyond high school and in life.
We are excited about this opportunity to shape the future experience of our graduates and provide the City of Lawrence the opportunity to envision a new Lawrence High School experience.
I want to be the mayor of Lawrence.
My name is Kendris Vasquez. I graduated Lawrence High School in 2004, and today I am the mayor of the City of Lawrence.
We look forward to your participation and input that will shape the future of the Lawrence Public Schools.
I hope you enjoyed that video. That was created specifically for this project. And we're excited to share our plans for a community-driven Portrait of a Graduate process here at Lawrence Public Schools. Next slide. Okay. So right now, today, students are experiencing a perfect storm of powerful forces working against them. We're living in an extraordinary time. The realities facing our graduating seniors are unprecedented. The stable employment is elusive, the cost of college is skyrocketing, and a bewildering array of post-secondary options compete for their money, energy, and time. Finding and securing the numerous jobs will work over a lifetime will require sophisticated goal setting, planning, and perseverance skills, and a strong network of guides and personal connections.
As Maricel alluded to on the last slide, change is necessary to support our learners in this current context. One way to nudge ourselves towards new ways of thinking about education is through our use of language. For example, referring to students as learners, and especially in the teen years, as apprentice adults. After all, young people will spend 13 years inside our schools and the rest of their lives outside of the school building. Our learners have to be prepared for the following: a weak labor market, complex work or learning landscapes, and a widening opportunity gap. A community-driven Portrait of a Graduate process will ensure students have the knowledge, skills, and dispositions to be successful both today and tomorrow.
For the Portrait of a Graduate at Lawrence Public Schools, we have members of our design team, which include Lawrence High School Head of School, Victor Caraballo Anderson, LPS Family Resource Center Leadership, Assistant Superintendent Denise Snyder, and Director of Family, Community, and Student Partnership, Nelson Buteng. Myself, Assistant Superintendent Maricel Gores, Northern Essex Community College Vice President of Student Affairs, Dr. Jennifer Mesquita, Lawrence Partnership Executive Director, Derek Mitchell, who's transitioning, and we will be honored to have Alexandra Nova, Mass Higher Merrimack Valley Career Center Executive Director, Brian Norris, and YDO Executive Director, Mark Kempfert. Simone Wright has also been helping the Portrait of a Graduate design team as a Superintendent's Fellow and Doctoral Candidate at the Urban Superintendent's Leadership Program at Hugsy. These members are representative of key stakeholder groups in Lawrence and have informed a comprehensive timeline to outreach to our networks to recruit over 40 members on our Portrait of a Graduate Steering Committee, which is reflective of our multiple stakeholder groups for a true community-driven process that includes alumni, students, teachers, administrators, parent, caregivers, employers, higher ed institutions, and community members, both elected and in service to the community. They will be tasked to outreach networks, recruit survey participants, disseminate surveys, and hold focus groups, as well as participate in those focus groups. Here's our timeline. We're about to launch our survey media campaign next week on May 18th. We'll be collecting survey responses between May 18th and June 15th, while facilitating stakeholder focus groups the beginning part of June. Our analysis will be conducted during the July 2021, quantitative and qualitatively. We'll prepare a draft of the Portrait of the Graduate based on the findings and ask for feedback from the stakeholder groups in August of 2021. We hope to bring that completed draft to you, the LAE board members, in September of 2021 for your feedback and hopefully your vote for us to pursue this Portrait of a Graduate that has been inclusive of all community stakeholders. I'm hoping that we can all work together so that all learners here can achieve what they want to be when they grow up. But not only what they want to be when they grow up, but it's also about discovering each student's strength and passion and making those dreams come to life in work and in learning every day. These are actual roles that our students are playing right now in their schools. You have your programmer, that one friend that could always help you navigate these interesting apps. You have your social worker, that other friend in your classroom who always wants to make sure that people are well taken care of and friends are maximizing each other's networks. You have your entrepreneur who's always interested in bringing in some items into the school building, knowing that there are they're snacks that may not be as interesting as the ones that are facilitated in our cafeteria. We have your engineer who's always willing to take on the challenge of taking things apart and putting things together. And of course, your graphic designer who's always interested in ensuring that their art is reflective of their peers.
Through this community-driven, informed process, we are asking all stakeholder groups, including the LAE Board, to do the following. Determine what skills, knowledge, and habits of success our students need to develop if they are to thrive in a world of change. Envision how our learning experience design can help students develop the broader, deeper competencies. And explore how we might gauge student progress in developing these competencies. Thank you in advance for joining us on this journey. We will be happy to answer any questions you may have now.
Great. Thank you both. Really appreciate that. I'm gonna start in reverse alphabetical order for this round of questions. So let's start with Dan.
Thank you so much. This looks like a great path. So how long is the input part of it, and then and so when do you see that part of it being over? And then I guess the real question is when is it going to be implemented? Like with what group of is it in the freshman? Will it be mid-year? Once you get the work done and figure out what you want to do, when will you start?
So part of the process is to ensure that the portrait is reflective of all the multiple stakeholders and their input. This draft that we will create, once it's approved by the members of the LAE board, then we'll move into the step of implementation. And starting this process with all our stakeholders to really inform what K-12 education will look like in order to prepare our students for the future. We can't start in the 9th grade. This has to be an initiative that starts all the way from pre-K. And it can't be an initiative that is only Lawrence Public School specific, but City of Lawrence specific. So all the stakeholders will uphold these competencies and skills and reflect them so that students and their families know that everyone is upholding this to make sure that our students have a clear path.
Did you say so you're not going to start at freshman year?
No, we're not going to start freshman year. So
you're going to start with, I'm saying so next year's 8th graders?
No, so the implementation process is also a grant process that we would have to apply for through the Bar Foundation. And they would offer facilitators that would include our multiple stakeholders to design our implementation process, and our implementation process will then determine a timeline, including what grades this will roll out. Because this has impact on curriculum delivery, skill set delivery, and also pedagogy.
Okay. That's great. I think this is really robust. I just want to, we've been kind of anxious about the redesign, and this is something that's really exciting. And so I would suggest, and clearly I'm just a member of the LAE board now, so I have no other powers outside those. But if the Bar Foundation decides not to fund that round, we should figure out a way to fund that.
Absolutely. I think everyone's committed to this next final step in the redesign process. And again, this cannot be an isolated redesign process just at the high school, because the students have to come in with the skills and know-hows in order to access the multiple pathways at the high school. But really, what we would like to see is that this portrait of a graduate is not only informed by research study, but is also informed by the community assets. To look at our community with strengths, and that our students' strengths and what they bring to the table and what our families bring to the table have a space in a global society, and we have to maximize that.
So will there be any intermediate things, actions done for those kids that are going through high school right now to try to create the same portrait as we try to make a perfect system? Or a thorough system, I should say, not perfect?
Yeah, perfect is unattainable, as I've been told.
I agree. I want to take that word back.
Yeah.
As we try to create a thorough system.
But actually, the high school students are part of this process, so they'll be involved in co-creating this with us.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Pat?
Yes, Marisol, this sounds fantastic. I'm excited to see what your group presents to us. I just have a question. Would the results, or after you gathered all the information, would it require any kind of curriculum revision in the high school?
We have to be open to that if we really want to have a portrait that's reflective of the community. So that's something, we're not saying that what the standards for curriculum in order for our students to be proficient at these standards are not important. They're actually ultimately important. The curriculum by which we ensure that our students have the skill set, knowledge, and competencies have to be reviewed and looked at to ensure that our teachers are very knowledgeable of the curriculums that are available and options, and that our students actually can access this curriculum that will result in them achieving these competencies.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks. Ashley?
I just have one question. On the PowerPoint, I saw that it said that you guys would be doing surveys. I just wanted to know, with your surveys, how will you get the most perspectives on what the project should look like, or what the outcome will be?
So the surveys are actually very layered. Depending on what your role as a stakeholder is, you would have targeted questions on what you think and believe are high skills and competencies and dispositions that students should have, and opportunities. So from the point of a student, from the point of an alumni, from the point of the parent, from a point of a community member, etc. And so it's really about getting everyone's input and then co-creating this portrait. So we don't have a guide, we're creating that guide alongside you. There are incentive plans that we've put in place in order to ensure that we get maximum participation. And so we're really looking forward to that. And having our steering committee membership of over 40 individuals is going to ensure that we do get maximum return on our surveys.
Great, thanks. Noemi?
Sorry, I'm very, happy to see the fruit of the labor. I was at the beginning of the process, and
sure were.
Yeah, and this is really exciting finally to see this here. And like Danny said, I really hope that even as we go to the process of applying for the grant, the board should be committed, and the district should be committed to support you guys on that work. So I'm glad to see it happening. So congratulations to all of you that have been part of that. And Maricel, you have been always with the baton on the top. So thank you for your work.
Well, thank you, Noemi. Your contribution is invaluable, and I appreciate your leadership and your patience as I was contemplating this grant and pursuing it.
You're doing
thank
so
you
much. Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Jess?
This is, I think, more of a comment than a question, but
I'm excited about this project. I think in some ways it's long overdue, and I wonder a couple of things. Number one, I feel like this, particularly in terms of the emphasis on critical thinking and problem solving skills, which I think are a hugely important element of this. There are going to need to be like curriculum and approach changes, right? Not just at the high school level, but at the earlier grades as well. And I would also venture to say that I think there's going to be some interesting trade-offs and conversations to be had about the extent to which we spend time on MCAS and testing prep and so on, you know, and the extent to which we spend time teaching children actual problem solving and critical thinking skills that are going to benefit them later in life. So I think that that's going to be a really, I just think it's going to be an interesting conversation to have when the time comes. But I'm excited for the work.
Thank you. Same.
Great, thanks. And again, maybe I just want to clarify. So the role of the LAE will be to provide input as part of the process. And then also, did I hear right that there's then sort of a plan or something that comes back to the LAE? Can you just clarify? I just want to make sure I got that right.
Yes. So your membership is representative of community stakeholder groups. Yep. Your key school committee members, city council also are going to be engaged in that. What we will bring back after your engagement and the surveys and in the focus groups is the compilation of everyone's input and what this portrait would look like. So we would bring that to the board, kind of similar to the earned autonomy framework. Yep. Or the turnaround school, right. Get your input, and then come back again with the final product for you to vote on.
Great. And that's great. And I just want to echo, like, I think it's a great process to be going down and really taking a hard look at, you know, our current system, things that we're preparing our graduates for, be it, you know, workforce or other areas, you know, that we need to be cognizant of. And I think getting the alumni perspective, as you already said, is really important. And I think the other thing I'd say is, I mean, for me, one of the most jarring photos is that photo that shows how little how we do quote unquote education has changed in terms of what it looks like, you know. And I can't help but make connections between like later presentations of like facilities and how we think about like organizing our spaces. And, you know, it makes me excited to think about the conversations we've already had about, you know, how we're designing spaces and thinking about that, but it's all related. And I think it's really driven by, again, the kind of conversations that you all are engaging with. I would also say that, you know, this year has been tremendously hard, and I would be very interested in making sure that we're reflecting and capturing lessons learned from this year that have been or proven to be helpful in supporting instruction and learning in different ways. And so just want to make sure that, you know, as part of this process, it seems like a logical way to, you know, weave it in. You know, just want to make sure we capture that. And I think my final is just a comment. I was going to pose this as a question, but I thought that would be too mean. So I'm just going to say it as a statement. Simone, I know you're a doctoral student and you have to go away and do a residency somewhere. I hope you consider coming back to Lawrence when you're done with your residency and you know, you get your doctorate complete. So again, I was going to put you on the spot and say, are you coming back? I'm not going to do that, but just hope that, you know, you do, because I know you've been providing great work, you know, to the district as well.
I'll do it.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Just stay, Simone. Just stay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for this really exciting. I mean, this is really, really exciting work, as others have already said. So thank you.
I just want to thank you all for your comments and look forward to your input in this process. And I am very, very excited. The design team is certainly excited, and our steering committee members are very much energized. We have our next meeting next week prior to the launch of the survey.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Maricel. Thank you so much, Simone. So next agenda item is the LAE project. We have our team here ready to go. This is going to be a presentation about the schematic design. At the end of this presentation, we will entertain questions and we will be asking for a vote. Okay, Suresh, you can take it away here.
Thank you, Superintendent Paris. Good afternoon to the LAE Board. It's a pleasure to be back here after almost 4 weeks. We were here last on March 17th, and almost 6 or 8 weeks now, but close enough. And we've done a lot of progress, and would like to share a presentation with you on where we are, where we left with you, and where we are now. So, Al, you want to start with the presentation, please?
Sure. Okay. Bill, do you have the share that presentation? Okay, so thank you very much, Suresh. So just to give everybody an update, where we are at this point is we've just completed the schematic design. We've submitted to the Mass School Building Authority, and what we're hoping to do today is to sort of give you an overview of where we are as in terms of the design and what things that we need to do moving forward to get this approved. So as everybody knows, this is the LAE Elementary School project. It's going to be a new school for 1,000 students that combine the Lawler, it combines the entire population of the LAE and a good population of the Up Leonard. So that's what this slide shows. If you go to the next slide, please. Everybody is, if they're not familiar with it, you go to the previous slide.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. So this is the existing school, and as you can see, this is the school that will be replaced. And so, you know, we're going to be, if you go to the next slide after this, what you'll see is that the new school, I think we mentioned this before, will basically encompass the majority of the site, for exception of that right upper corner. We have, you know, in terms of the site, the building will be sited basically almost curb to curb. We will have the front entry still on Irvin Street. It'll be closer to the road. We'll have plenty of sidewalks, handicap accessibility around the entire building. We were going to have exterior lighting controlled. We'll have planting, and we'll have access to a crosswalk that would cross across the street. And there will be on-site parking. We have things that we need to mitigate, which we've discussed before, which is the 100-year floodplain, which we have adequate storage capacity as we're designing now. We will be also dealing with some zoning setback in terms of getting approvals on the local board level, also height, relief as well. We do have 2 entries, the main entry at the bottom off of Irving, which is for the upper grade kids, and then off of Bruce Street, there'll be the lower grade elementary students entering from that particular area. We do have a road in the very rear of the building on the north side, which is for emergency access across the way. And as you can see, we'll have plantings and trees surrounding the entire building to scale the building. I think that is sufficient there. You can go to the next slide, and Susan, if you want to take us through the footprint to talk about how the school is organized.
Absolutely. So we have been working on this for some time now, and the plan is becoming very much solidified at this point in the project. You may see that there's a little bit more detail in this plan than the last time we presented it, although with very few exceptions, not much has really changed in terms of where things have been located throughout the plan. On the first floor, we have, as Al mentioned, 2 entries, one off of Irving Street that will serve both the elementary school and the middle school, And you can see that suite that's mostly in that burgundy color. So there's a number of offices for administration. It's really the public-facing portion of administration in the building. The rest of the red spaces that you see throughout the building are really student-facing administration spaces. And also, as Al mentioned, we have a small kindergarten main entrance up on Bruce Street, which is surrounded by the kindergarten classrooms. So the kindergarten area has its own little neighborhood within the building and its separate entrance. Also on this floor, we have a cafetorium with its associated spaces, things like the platform and the kitchen and teacher dining and things like that. We have one specialist space, the music room, that is also on this floor, which supports the cafetorium. So that pretty much rounds out this floor. The second floor, you'll start to see a lot of repetition as we move up the building. On the upper portion of the floor plan, you'll see that there are two grade level neighborhoods. These are mirror images of each other on this floor. So we have a number of classrooms with specialist spaces. We have dedicated toilet rooms right within this suite. And the intent here is to keep students in a familiar surroundings within this very large building, or I should say much larger than what they're coming from. So it gives a sense of a smaller space within a larger building. We have a bisecting corridor that goes from right to left on the screen, and then you'll see below that are a number of specialty spaces, our music, art, and STE spaces. That's a science, technology, engineering space for the elementary school students. And in that lower right, that forms its own suite together, so that opens up onto a larger area. Some of our media center is in that space. So these specialists are meant to interact with one another within this zone of the building. On the next floor, you'll see that the upper half of the floor plan is identical to the floor below. This is where we have grades 3 and 4. And then on the lower portion of the right, we have another neighborhood suite. It has a similar arrangement of the same number of rooms, also forming a neighborhood on this floor. Rounding out this floor is the gym and the locker rooms. You can see that in green. On the fourth floor, again, you'll see the upper portion of the floor plan is identical to below, and you'll see that we also have a neighborhood on the lower right that is identical below. So this helps keep kids familiar, but it also provides an added bonus of stacking the floor plan, which makes it very efficient in terms of constructability. Then we also have some science rooms over on the other side here for the middle school students. Oh, I forgot to mention that this floor is actually the middle school floor. So the intent is to keep grades 6th, 7th, and 8th, and the signs on this floor. So students have ownership, basically, of this floor, which also keeps that school within a school feeling happening throughout. On our 5th floor, we just have a few more specialist spaces on this floor, and then the rooftop area, which is where we're really trying to replicate outdoor space, but actually on the roof. And so this is where I'm going to turn it over to Dennis, and afterwards we'll be happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Susan. And yeah, the rooftop play area is really quite exciting. It's ironic that in a situation where we had to take a school off a site and replace it with a school that filled the entire site, we're actually able to create more play area than originally existed by utilizing the roof. One thing I want to point out that was hard to read from the plans is that this entire building does cover the entire site. The upper right corner is only open on the first floor. So parking is on the first floor. So sort of underneath all the rest of the school as it goes up. So this really is a school which fills the entire site. And what we've done, just to mention the spaces up here, we've brought an adaptive PE, physical education space up with a covered play area immediately outside of it. We also have an art room, which can utilize the outside area for outside use for painting and other sort of things, batik and other things that you'd really want to do outdoors and not inside. And a hard surface play area, walking paths, outdoor classroom sorts of spaces, both hard and soft, active and passive, and also an entire science sort of center with raised planting, as well as recycling area to the left of that. So we're trying to sort of capture everything that we would have been doing outdoors and putting it on top of the school. The only part that is not being utilized is where mechanical equipment has to be placed, and that's Bill was pointing that out over in the lower left-hand corner, and that will be completely fenced in. So as we go to the next slide, you'll see how the school articulates itself on the site. And if you look at the upper right-hand corner, you'll see how one drives in underneath the school for the parking. But the school is otherwise, because it's such a large building, it's broken up into smaller segments, which are articulated on the street in a way that's not unlike the scale of the neighborhood. And so as one approaches it as a pedestrian, it seems more a collection of smaller buildings than one rather large building. Also a very welcoming entrance, which is approached by stairs and also a ramp to get up to the main entry. And the main large areas of the school are celebrated immediately adjacent to that, with that curved front of the cafeteria and also art areas above it. And then the two-story area above that is the gymnasium area.
Thank you, Dennis.
Let's talk about the project budget, the most important part of the process. Thank you, Al and Dennis and Susan and Bill. So right now we're looking at our total, on the bottom of the screen, as you see, the overall project costs about $102,153,299. And out of that, the estimated project budget, which is before the contingency, is about $98,539,000. The total reimbursement from the MSBA calculates out to be about just shy of $59 million, and the city's portion will be around $39.6 million, $39.7 million. If you're going to move the next slide, Bill, please. Thank you. And on the schedule-wise, we're looking right now, we're in front of the MSBA board on June 23rd, in about 4 weeks, to get approval from them, which is this LAE School Building Committee voted to move this forward, and we're looking for a vote from you after this question and answers. The phase one will be, we've developed 2 different phases of this project. Phase one would be the abatement and demolition, so we can do that as a separate way of bidding the project, what we call Chapter 30, which reduces the cost of the general contractor. And also, any surprises we find in the ground, we can mitigate those and have less risk moving with the contractor later on with any project delays. And the second phase of this project would be the actual school construction from foundations all the way up to the finish of it. And we're looking to finish that by summer of 2024 for occupancy for the 24-25 school year. And we're ready for any questions we can answer for you.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and start, again, alphabetical. So Jess, go ahead and start.
I don't have any questions about the design. We've asked questions at other parts, and I was part of I went to some of the meetings where parents were weighing in on design too, which was great. What I do want to say though is that we just had a bit of a challenging time getting the Oliver School project through City Council, and I feel like we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can well in advance of the time when this will come in front of council to really educate City Council members about, what an amazing asset this will be to the neighborhood and for the kids, and how necessary it is, in terms of being able to really serve the district. So that's really, and then my only other comment is just around, I do think it would behoove this board to do some advocacy around the portion of this that the MSBA is going to bear versus what the city is going to have to bear, because this is a pretty large burden for a not very rich city like Lawrence to shoulder in terms of debt issuance for a project like this. And I absolutely think it's worth it. This is what we should be spending our money on, but I'd like the state to help us out a little bit more.
Understood.
Great, thank you. Noemi?
I don't have any questions at this point. Thank you.
Great. Ashley?
I just wanted to know, where would students be during this time? Because I see that it says that the start date would be September of 2022, and it's like a whole 405-day process. So where would the students be placed?
It's a very good question, and to the chair, if I can respond. We're right now looking to review, once we have the approval for the project from the city council, we'll be looking for the next 1 year to see where we have to relocate the students with the district and with the superintendent's office, which will happen if the project moves forward in starting the school year of 2022-23 school year. So we'll be not moving any students for this coming school year, but it'll be the following school year. And we'll be looking to work with the city to see what areas we can find where it can be done it's always painful, try to make it as least painful as possible for the students to be able to, possibly stay together as much as possible. And having spoken to Ethel, the principal for the LAE, and the former principal, Patricia, was here, it's always been our goal to move the students as cohesive as possible, keep the school as cohesive as possible.
Great. You all set, Ashley? Great. We'll go to Pat.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. But every time I see this design, it's so exciting to see. And the kids deserve something this nice and this beautiful. It makes me really thrilled to know that by June or May 30th, hopefully 2024, there'll be a new building on that site. What I'd like to echo Jess, in a way, I wish MSBA was contributing a little bit more to this project. And I don't know how we can advocate for that or if it's possible. And also the city council, we need to do our work well in advance to make sure that there's no holdback when things go to city council that need to be approved. But thank you to the team. The school is absolutely beautiful, and I just can't wait to see it.
Thanks, Pat. Dan?
No question for me. I'm really excited about this project. It looks great. I'm just thrilled about it.
Great, thank you. And I also have, at this time, no further questions. I mean, I got to ask questions last time, and I'd like to see the updates here. And I know that this is one step of the process, and an important step to allow us to continue just to do more work and get more information. So, I'm all set at this point. So we are voting on it. Is there language for the vote on the slide? I thought I saw that in the presentation that I reviewed. There we go. This makes it easier for me. So, and again, just in line then, the next step here for the LAE board is we're voting to recommend submission of the schematic design for the LAE to the MSBA board. That's the next step in the process. So I'd be happy to entertain a motion to approve this motion here as it appears on the screen.
I'm so proud to move. Oh, Mayor, go ahead.
I'm sorry, no, Pat should move the
motion. Step back. Yeah, Pat, you go ahead and put that forward.
It's an honor for me to move this forward.
I think that's very awesome and appropriate as the former principal there. I would love to second it as a current parent.
Absolutely. I'll get out of the way.
There you go. We got it. Any further discussion? If not, I'm happy to go to a vote. Okay, hearing none. Jess?
Yes.
Noemi?
Yes.
Pat?
Absolutely.
Dan? Dan? Dan, I think you're on mute.
Yes.
Great, and the chair votes yes. So this portion is approved. So thank you. Look forward to hearing more, sort of the next steps, and just duly noted the comments of board members. I think one, it's phenomenal, right, that we have two projects that are being one already and another considered being funded by MSBA. That's great. But duly noted the comments from board members on if there are ways to advocate. And I guess the other question I would ask is sort of investigating, because I understand there is some legislation that may be moving forward related to building projects and things like that. So I'm happy to do a little due diligence here and digging around a little bit more, to bring back to the board. So, all right, thank you all. Superintendent, hand it back over to you.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you so much to MBG and Atlantic and this amazing team. Thank you so much. The next agenda item is on policies. So in a moment, Denise Snyder is going to be sharing her screen, and she is joined by one of our legal counsel, Angela Smagula.
I did.
Hi everyone. I'm just going to switch to presentation mode here. It's good to be with all of you again this evening, and always exciting to present opportunities for policy updates and changes in new policies that keep our district moving forward. So we this evening, as you saw from your packets, have a lot. We are talking about 6 policies and a procedural document. As Superintendent Paris noted, we're joined by our legal counsel, Angela Smagula, who has worked very closely with us to make sure that everything we're presenting helps us be in compliance to the full extent that a school district can be. So let's go ahead and get started. So it's worth noting that what we're presenting this evening really is about compliance. We have some work to do to ensure that we meet the statutory requirements, both federal and at the state level. And in fact, all of tonight's requests are really helping us do that, and they are really all rooted in statutory regulations. So the first one we're going to look at, and there are 6 in total, but the first one we're going to look at is a Title IX proposal. This proposal is a recommendation to replace existing policy and procedure. This is our Title IX sexual harassment policy. And if we take a closer look, this is called or coded ACA. And the Title IX that we currently use, the policy we currently have, is a much broader policy document. it actually encompasses other types of harassment and complaints and discrimination complaints that don't belong in this policy. They're absolutely required and necessary, but not in this policy. So we have an opportunity to untangle the policies. We already, and they're actually redundant because we've already included our policy work in these areas in other policies, around sorry, I've lost my place on my screen, but on non-discrimination, in our code of conduct, in our equal educational opportunities. All of these are already referenced somewhere else, and then, or actually the subject of other policies, and then should be referenced, cross-referenced here, not embedded. So that's a really significant change. Also in this document, in the policy, we're finding items and areas that were not included in former policy documents, such as requirements for training of the coordinator, requirements for publicly posting information around this policy and around the coordinator and around the training materials. So again, all of this is statutory. And all of this, we really need to have in our district to be in compliance. The two things we've done, as I said, is really untangle this from other policies that we already have, which makes this cleaner and easier to read and use. And we have separated the procedural process, which formerly was all embedded in one giant document. The procedure is very long to begin with. And now it's in its own separate companion document, so it's ACAR, and really outlines the process to file a grievance when it comes to Title IX sexual harassment. So when we do that and we create a separate document, A, it's easier to follow, and B, it's easier to update. So if there are procedural guidance recommendations or statutory changes, we can go ahead and make those directly to a procedure document. So it's that simple in a way because it is so rooted in statute. So again, we're looking to untangle them. ACA is the policy that we're looking to vote on. ACAR is the procedure. And unlike the other policies that we're going to talk about tonight, this one we're actually seeking a vote this evening. Now that we're all back in school, now that we're looking, starting up sporting activities, having this policy that we can fall back on, having a grievance procedure that students, staff, families can reference, it's critical. You know, when we were remote, it was a little less likely, right? So we really want to be able to have a policy up in place, protecting our students and our staff and protecting our schools. So this is timely. And I think that one thing I'd like to ask at this point is if we want to entertain questions about this policy and procedure document before we continue, or if you'd like me to go all the way through and then take questions.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest the latter only because I just need to state for the record, I've lost my quorum right now. So I'm trying to achieve my quorum once again. So I would say go ahead and continue. Yeah, hopefully we'll get that as soon as possible here.
Fantastic. Happy to do so. So, the next three are really about protections for homeless students, our youth who are in foster care, and our students who are part of military families. And again, these are brand new policies proposed to you. And unlike the Title IX, we'd come back in June for a vote on these. So if we take a look, I think, what I want to say about these again is that we're really looking to make up some ground on three required policies for school districts. These are required. These are also statutory. Some really great news is that this is a formalization of practice, right? Our policies. And we have been implementing protocols that protect these three areas for years now, about several years ago, we actually worked with the state to identify a homeless liaison for the state, which is Nelson Buten, and a education stability specialist, Arlen Santiago, who does the work on the ground with our vulnerable populations listed here. So we're doing the work, and yet when we're working with our DESE mentor in this space, we realized we don't actually have the policy. So we are playing a little bit of catch up. So when we look at these, we'll look at the homeless one first. This again is about helping students have stability that they need. So it's quickly ensuring access to enrollment. It is, to that extent, being able to bypass some of the required documents and then go back and get them after enrollment, because we don't want them to spend a lot of time out of school. It is about providing families who are transitioning in and out of the city, or even in and out of assignment catchment areas for schools, the opportunity to stay in the school of their origin, right? Their origin school. So to be able to have that consistency, or to realize that, you know what, the move puts them closer to a school they want to be in, and to be able to do that. So the choice belongs with the family. And also being able to have a very clear process for dispute resolution. You know, that often comes up maybe around transportation, where a family will say they want to attend a school of origin, but then they actually move over an hour away. And so at some point there's a conversation about whether or not it's in the student's best interest to spend 2 hours on a bus to have that continuity, or whether it's in their best interest to attend school closer to home. So those are the types of dispute resolutions that might be pursued, and all of that we have an opportunity to clarify and codify in the homeless student enrollment rights services. And ultimately, this is part of McKinney-Vento. That's what MVA stands for, so McKinney-Vento law. So we are trying to be in compliance with that. And as I said, we have been utilizing Arlen and Nelson to implement all of this, but we need the policy that supports it and provides that necessary information for our families. Similarly, JFABF is our Educational Opportunities for Children in Foster Care. This is quite similar. Again, it ensures swift facilitation, you know, of making sure that kids can seamlessly be enrolling and participating in school, in classes and school activities. It allows us the opportunity to be able to, do data collection and provide services for students transferring in or out of the district. So, you know, the idea that sending or receiving schools have a very short window to turn around those student records, so that time isn't lost waiting to find out an IEP, waiting to find out L program codes, waiting to find out if they qualify for advanced placement in some courses. It extends deadlines for immunization requirements. Again, that idea of get students into school quickly. And then, as I said, you know, it honors the placement that's listed in the former or sending school. It honors that immediately so that there's no lost time. And then a district, Lawrence, has the opportunity to do their own assessments and determine whether or not that's an appropriate placement for the student. But no time is lost for the student who is seeking to continue in those programs when they first arrive in Lawrence. And again, as you might assume, assumes financial and programmatic responsibility for special education students who have IEPs. So this policy outlines steps for best interest determination, which I just explained in the homeless policy, and basically ensures immediate access and enrollment in schools and to things like transportation. And then similarly, we have JFABF, EBE, which is our Educational Opportunities for Military Children. And in this one, we're really, again, talking about having a very tight window for records exchange so that students can be placed as quickly as possible. You know, in our military families, when people are called to active duty and they're moved around, we really want to provide that sort of stability and consistency and not have the student be penalized because their parents or guardians are doing really important work. It allows, again, for an extension of immunization requirements, honoring initial placement, and assuming financial and programmatic responsibility. And actually, I think I may have switched these slides on you, but I think you followed along so far, correct? I can always step back if you have questions. So I want to look at the last two policy requests. They are Equal Educational Opportunities Policy and our School Admission Policy. These exist in the school district. We have them, and the number one reason we're even bringing them here tonight is actually the opportunity to incorporate the references to all of these other policies, right? So this is an opportunity to say that, you know, in our school admissions policy, we reference our homeless, our foster, our military protections. So for instance, if we look at the first slide on school admissions, the first section is unchanged. You know, we are obligated and enthusiastic to provide educational services to all the students who legally reside in the city of Lawrence, and some who are beyond that, such as our foster care students or our homeless students. Again, the policy outlines the requirements for admission, including, you know, entrance age, medical clearance documentation, proof of residency. The policy also ensures that we are making the public aware of how this process works, what documents are required, what the timeline is for this. And so, you know, first and foremost, you'll find this on our website. You'll also find it in our social media. You'll find it pushed out through the schools, through our community partners. We are just in the middle of an outreach campaign around preschool and kindergarten, and I'll do a little shout out for Pat Mariano, who did a little Facebook posting promoting the registration process. You know, we're very creative, but ultimately, you know, our biggest fallback is that you will always find this on our website. So ultimately, this policy has two big updates. One is that we took out some of the procedural stuff because that is the list that goes on the website and gets shared with families, and the policy basically ensures that that's our commitment. And then the second is that the policy cross-references educational opportunities and the three new policies around homeless, foster, and military. So very simple changes, but makes for a much shorter, much cleaner policy. And then if we look at the last one, these are the Equal Educational Opportunities policy. This is practically unchanged. It cross-references the policies on admission, Title IX, and the ones for homeless, foster, and military. So again, the only one that we're seeking a vote on tonight is Title IX and the procedural accompanying document. All of these others, we would want to come back to you in June for a vote so that we are all teed up for the new school year. And at this point, I can entertain questions along with our legal counsel.
Great. Thanks, Denise. And yeah, what I would say is, especially because of the Title IX, that's the one that, you know, we're seeking a vote on tonight. I mean, feel free to comment on any of them. This is to the board, or ask questions about them. You know, but, you know, I guess I really would like, especially the one that's voting on tonight, if there are questions around that one in particular, because we'll have another chance, you know, at the next meeting as well, you know, to ask questions around the other policies. So let me go ahead and start with, I think I'm going backwards in the alphabet now, so I'll start with Dan. And just to say for the record, we did reestablish quorum in the meeting. So Dan, do you have any questions around any of the policies or the, Title IX specifically?
No, I'm glad that we're tightening it up. I appreciate it.
Yep. Great. Pat, just for the record, had to step out. As you all know, she is on the school committee as well, and they had a meeting that started at 7, so she, stepped out to be able to attend that one. So, Ashley?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Great. Noemi?
I just want to commend you for the amount of work that it took to do this. I read through the documents, and they were well written, and the descriptions were easy to follow. Working at the college, we go through those processes, and it's a lot of work. They're not too exciting, I have to admit, but it's very important work that has to be done. So I really, congratulations for the well done report.
Thank you.
Thanks, Noemi. Jess?
No questions. I would just echo Noemi on this. So.
Great. And again, I have no questions at this time either, but appreciate the thoroughness, having a chance to look at them all, and, definitely follow up with any other questions, before we vote next meeting. So, so how do we want to take it? Is it technically 2? Or are considered 1? I mean, I know we have the...
Yeah, you probably have to vote on each one individually.
Okay, so one is, again, I'm looking at them both, the foundation and basic commitments, right? So the grievance procedure. And then the second one is around the policy itself.
Right, so ACA is the policy and ACAR is the procedural document, if you want to do it that way.
Okay, great. So why don't we start with ACA? I love acronyms, man. We got acronyms. Okay, let's start with the policy itself. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt the policy as presented to us.
So moved.
Noemi, I think I have a second.
Second, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'll just do a vote. Jess?
Yes.
Noemi?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes. I would have seconded it, but I didn't want to step on anybody.
Okay, no problem. And the chair votes yes. Okay, great. And the second one we'll take up tonight then is the procedures. So ACAR. Do I have a motion to approve this?
Dan, it's all you.
Dan, that's you, man.
So moved.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none. Take a vote. Jess?
Yes.
Noemi?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So they are approved. Thank you. And look forward to discussing if there are other questions people have, at our next meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Denise. At this time, we've concluded our agenda items for tonight.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate, again, just all the work and the updates tonight. So thank you very much. Just as we adjourn, I do want to say that, it was my hope to have this current meeting in person. I did reach out to Mark LaPlante and the city council and just trying to better understand what their plans are as well. And I know that they've had conversations on the city council side about returning to in-person, but it doesn't sound like they've made a definitive decision. I would like to continue to speak with the city council and maybe, again, reach out to members of the LAE. For me, it's important to try to get back in person, also recognizing that folks are focusing 100% on getting kids back and facilities and all that as well. So I will circle back with LAE members, as I get more information about when we can come back in person. So great. Well, thank you. At this point, I did lose my quorum again, but one of the things in our bylaws I just confirmed that I can do is adjourn a meeting, even if a quorum is not, present. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn from the members of the LAE who are here.
So moved.
Noemi, I'm going to ask you for the second.
Sorry, second?
All right, great. So, and I think I have to take the vote, even though I don't have quorum. It's in our bylaws. So, Jess?
Yep.
Noemi,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So thank you all. Really appreciate the time tonight, and have a good night.